Okay, so sometimes between filming these segments, it's a kind of a large amount of time, so just getting back from my time away, so it's a little over a week since I've messed with this thing. Finally getting to the deck after finishing the Craftsman there that you've seen before. Just filming order and the way I post them is a little bit out of order, just so it makes sense for y'all. I'm going to get the blades off. They are 9/16 inch. I cleaned up under the deck some. I don't see really any other holes besides that one and this one. There's a couple of soft spots, but all in all, I've seen much worse when it comes to these Craftsman decks, especially when they're not the 12 gauge steel, so I'll definitely take it. So let me shut y'all down. I'll get the 9/16 and take the blades off. Just about hit my head, so be careful maybe you take them off. These have been replaced at some point because they're aftermarket Arnold brand, so they're still in decent shape overall. They've lost kind of just a trace of their lift, but nothing to really sneeze at. They're just a little rusted. They're still in good shape though. Get the other one off. I think somebody threw some anti-seize on them while they were at it, so that's kind of nice. Alright, so now the two holes, I'm going to grab my drill and the wire. I'm going to try this wire brush here, then do the cordless drill since it spins at a lower RPM. Let's see. That right there. I'm probably not going to try and get all the rusty metal off. I'm just going to try and get an abrasive surface just so I don't wear any more bigger holes in the deck. And then we're going to patch it. Got some of the rust off. You're not going to get much more than this off because you can see I've actually worn a little bit more out here. and you just don't want to fall down that slippery slope right here as well. So I have some mesh tape I'm going to throw down onto the deck here. I'll put you on the side of the deck. How about that? And we don't have any scissors, right? Just throw some of that down. That'll act kind of as an agent for my JB weld I'm going to put down. This isn't the stickiest tape in the world. But it's just kind of as a bonding agent for the mesh. The mesh is just kind of a bonding agent for me so that I have an abrasive surface to be able to put this. I'm going to get another piece because that piece ain't sticky at all. The JB weld. So just like that. That's good enough. I wish there was really a better way to do this, but there's not, because I guess the steel, I got steel stick up in here somewhere. There we go. Put that on there, because I could go out and try and find a deck for $50, $75, $100. Who's to say it's not going to be in better condition than this deck? Because these mowers are starting to get kind of old, and then the newer decks, I think, maybe just have a little bit different hookups on the top. Not completely sure, but this deck is definitely salvageable. So I'm going to mix up some of my JB weld and stick it on there, and I'll catch back up with y'all when I do that. Okay, so got this done, as well as that's just residual paint from another project, but this done as well. I'm gonna let that sit overnight and try and bond. Kind of push it. I don't know if I push it in over here. Actually, I'm not gonna push it in right there. I'm just gonna let it bond overnight. Sorry for the sun glare. Come back tomorrow. I'm gonna paint it, as it should be hardened by then. I found a couple more pinholes in the back here, but I know I'm not gonna be able to get all of them, so I'm just gonna kind of pick my battles here. So next, let's turn over the deck. Okay, deck's turned over. Now let's address the issue with the blade staying on all the time. So first off, don't forget you have a washer on that pulley. Take it off. Get a 9/16 inch. Is it a 9/16 inch? Let's see. Deep well. Yes, 9/16 inch deep well. Fits right into it. Grab my impact. Little hint, pull up on the pulley as you pull this off. I'm actually going to take a picture of this while I am looking at it so that I know how it goes back on. So again, we're going to go ahead and get both of these pulleys off just to get them out of the way. That guide is a little bit bent. And then I'll catch back up with y'all after I get these pulleys off. We'll take a picture of this as well. Okay, let me catch you up. So I got the second pulley off here. Bolts are still in. And then took this nut off as well. And this, the left side of the pulley. So now I've gotten it free to where I can take it off. Just remember what goes where, because you don't want to mess that up. Okay, so that bolt goes right there. There's your washer. See all the rust and whatnot. We're going to clean that up. But let me show you all the grooves that watching the Terrell Fixes All channel, kind of learned a little bit about this. You see those grooves that kind of got in just right there in the middle, worn on this piece. So what we're going to do, I'm running out of battery, hopefully I got enough battery for this right there as well, is actually take the grinder. I'll do this off camera since I am hurting for battery life here, but taking the grinder and just grinding it flat. I can do it here. I'm going to take the file, or you can take an angle grinder. I'm going to do it right here as well. See where it's kind of a little groove? So I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to clean up everything right here as well, just to make it less abrasive, and then we'll put it back together, and I'll catch up with y'all after I clean everything and grind this off. So this by no means is an award-winning paint job, but I went ahead and just hit it up with some primer and just a can of cheap spray paint, just kind of make it look a little better, as well as help keep some of the rust at bay. Again, I'm going to disclose that the deck is a little rusty, because I don't like selling stuff in a shady manner like that, saying like, oh, it's a new deck. I'll not be fooling anybody but myself. But I also did the underside a little bit. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to do my holes, my JB Weld holes tomorrow. Real quick, I'll show you all that I got my camera fully charged for tomorrow, but I'll show y'all that I have gotten the divots out of the blade engage mechanism. So that's the one on the inside there that I used the file for. And then here's the one on the outside that I use the angle grinder for. It's just to get them flattened out so that there's no divots in there anymore, and so that the blade engage will work properly. I'm going to put some lube on. We can put anti-seize as well, just to try and keep the blades engaging and disengaging like it's supposed to. Hopefully that cable's still strong enough. It's a little on the rusty side, but I was able to free it up, and it seems to be working well, and hopefully will be working properly when I put the mower back on. If not, that's a really easy change out. Hopefully I don't have to do that though, because I really would like to be able to just call it a day with this thing after that. But as y'all can tell, the sun glare is getting bad. The sun's about to go down. Got to get up really early the next morning, so I'll pick this video up tomorrow, which y'all will see on the next clip. Well, yesterday brings sun, today brings some rain, which is kind of a welcome sight because we haven't had rain in a little bit. Before, this turned out okay. I just threw some paint on it. Obviously, I've got some runs in it, but hopefully this will stay. It looks pretty sturdy, and I'm sure that once the blade, I guess the turbulence from the blade pushing up against it will probably help make it a pretty good fix for what it's going to be. While I'm letting that dry, I'll tease y'all for a minute before I put the deck back on and try it out. One thing I want to do, actually two things. One thing, let me show y'all. So the choke is a little bit tight on it. So the choke is right there where the lever is that's moving, right there. That's the choke. Pushes on that, goes up in there to the carburetor, and then acts the choke. So the choke is on now. The choke is supposed to be off. The choke's not moving anywhere because it's kind of stuck, as you can see. Let me give y'all a better vantage point with the flashlight. So the choke is right there, right here, and I'm manually moving the lever now if I can find it. So it's supposed to come back on. It's on right there. Easy fix to this. I'm going to grab a can of lubricant. We're going to work it back and forth, and that should get the the choke to work. So let's do that. As long as the choke spring isn't bad on it, which I don't think it is. I like to douse the mess with. And back and forth, back and forth. Just work it a little bit. Get some of that lube in there. And it's not, it takes a little bit of working, because if you think about it, this mower's been sitting outside for a little while. And I'm sure some of the carb pressure from the intake will allow it to operate a little bit better than it is. As you push it up and then pull it back, it should come on back pretty quickly. Let me actually try it. I want to put a valve cover on it, so I'm not going to run it very long. I just want to see if this thing will actually pull off a choke whenever I start it up, which I don't have a battery in. So I'll get to that later. Just kind of wanted to show you all that. Throw a little bit of lube on it. As long as the carb or the choke spring is good, you shouldn't have any issues with it. This was just really slow to unlatch. But next I'm going to do the valve cover I believe it was 410 millimeters, and I'll mount y'all on the bench so that y'all can see that. So obviously the reason why I'm taking it off is the valve cover's leaking. So, which if you don't have a Briggs with a leaking valve cover, then you probably have never had a Briggs engine. Might be a good idea to put like a rag or a little old t-shirt or something like that. So the engine, especially right here in the valve cover area, looks really good. There's your oil residue down there that you don't want to get on the exhaust, because then you'll have a smoke fest on the mower. So I am actually going to replace this with red Permatex gasket sealer. So I'm going to take this old gasket off using a scraper that if I can't get it mostly off. Here we go. There we go. We'll be able to get most of it off like that. These gaskets are prone to leaking, so super easy to do this. I'm going to clean the surface off on my... You want to clean the surface off, you either use like a miniature, like a Dremel wire, a wire brush on like a Dremel or something of that nature to get this residue, get all the little excess stuff off. You don't want to use like really coarse wire brushes and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and do that off camera. I'll also go ahead and like clean all this up and put the red gasket sealer onto the valve cover gasket itself, and I'll catch back with y'all up with y'all when I do that. So I am probably the world's most liberal applier of gasket maker on the gaskets. I try to make sure that they don't leak, I suppose, but I've got a good clean line around here. It's a big line, but it's a line. But a clean line. So let me get the bolts and we'll put it back on. And also I just want to mention I cleaned off the surface of this as well on the head. Just want to get a good clean seal so you don't have any more leakage. Try not to touch the gasket maker as you're putting it on. Then also, it probably goes without saying, but don't run it for 24 hours or so after you apply this, just to be on the safe side, so that you know that the gasket has dried and sealed up. And also clean the inside of it as well. So just make sure you do all that before you put it in. Just going to try and start all these bolts first. So, got them threaded to start. Of course, I've lost the fourth one, so I'm gonna search for that one, thread it in, and we're gonna tighten it up. Alright, so I found it. They're all in, all four of them. First, I mean, I could impact them in, but I want the gasket to seal well, so I'm going to get just a 10mm, I guess an extension. I'm going to get the 1/4 inch drive ratchet so I don't over tighten them. Going in a cross pattern as well. Cross pattern. Don't over tighten. So there's actually a decent amount of gasket maker, but it was just enough to cover everything, so that's good. And check under the underside. What I like to see, and I'm sure that it's sealed just fine, is I like to see the stuff like oozing out of it. You just have to be careful of not getting it inside and like having trash and whatnot build up in it. But I like having a decent amount of gasket maker. Some people would say clean it up. I don't really worry about it because to me that's a sign of it got worked on. I try not to hide my stuff, so it's like a sign that I worked on it, I sealed it, and look at all the sealer. So alright, so next I think the spring was weak on the carburetor, the choke, and I know I was just on that just a second ago. Well, I pulled up on this choke mechanism and I actually broke the spring. The good news is I've got plenty of carburetors to poach parts from, So I'm going to pull probably the entire choke assembly off of this so that I can get the spring and all that on there. So that's coming up as well. And now that I've done that, I have the brake pads and I already have the sealer out. So I am going to go ahead and put the new brake pad onto the clutch assembly while I still have the deck off. So it'll be a little bit easier to get to. And then I'll also source something to fix the carb spring since I messed that up. So that's coming up in just a second. Alright, so I'm going to do this without taking the wheel off like I did in the other part of the video where I tested this. I already broke this loose. Remember, the back one actually stripped off and just left me kind of a little stud so that it gets to stay on the mower and doesn't slide off, so that was kind of a treat. I'm going to put a little bit of that Loctite Permatex stuff. I'm actually going to put the bolt head back on it just so it looks complete. The functionality of it will still be what it needs to be, so I'm not worried in that aspect of it. And obviously this is going to get a test mow before I do it. So I got it down. There's the brake pad. We're going to take the brake pad off because if y'all remember, it's actually worn. See, I've actually broken on the back because it was thin already. Let me find what I did with the brake pads and I'll be right back. Okay, found them. So there's your old brake pad, which was worn in pretty good. Mostly because this whole mechanism was rusted up. The new brake pad, before I tear the bag, there's your number. This is a Peerless 6-speed transmission. Probably comes in most of the Craftsmans that have a geared transmission. 799021. Comes with 2 pads in it. You're supposed to actually change the one inside of the clutch as well. I don't want to go through the trouble of trying to get that clutch off because it is a little on the rusted side. And another reason why I wanted to test this was to see if just one brake pad would do the trick. So there we go. Place it back up in there. And then we're going to tighten this back down, which I'll probably need the ratchet for. Just make sure that your pad doesn't lose its position. Oh, there's your backing pad. Make sure both this and the backing pad don't lose their position inside the brake mechanism there. But you can do that and then actually push the mechanism in just like so. That'll keep it from going anywhere. Yeah, that looks good. There's a little limited room down here to work. Plus I got the spring on here as well, so it's giving me a little bit of tension. I could put the ratchet on, I'm just trying to finger tight it real quick. Hitting a couple of rust spots, but not too bad. I apologize, I've been teasing this deck repair for a long time and I haven't been able to get to it because of all the other little issues that I've run into with this mower. That's probably plenty good. So next, let's see. I'm going to grab a little bit of Permatex and just put on that bolt, and I'm going to slide that in there just so there's a little bit of a secure. I mean, it looks more finished off. The functionality, it's not going to go anywhere because it's got the stud on it still, but the whole functionality of it and the look of it, and also this little secure kind of slider bracket, I want to give it a place to mount as well. So I'm going to do that off camera. Just pop that back in. I'll show you all the finished product in just a second. Oops, sorry. Got a little bit of Permatex here. This will help keep it from, I guess, moving out of the hole of the transmission. Again, for mostly looks, not really any purpose associated with putting this bolt back in. So I'm going to let that seal up for 24 hours like I did the valve cover gasket. And we'll continue. I might see if I can source a carburetor real quick before I put the deck back on. Or y'all probably want to see the deck, so let's get the deck back on it. So I tried to film this multiple times about the assembly process, and I kept running into snags. The first was I got it all back together, and just for the record, you want to put all of your bolts that you thread up first before you put the pulleys back on, and then you put the lower bracket on. There's a washer that goes underneath this lower bracket. Whenever you put that on, there's a washer that goes underneath this pulley. So the first one is I'm missing a spring here. I didn't realize I was missing a deck spring, so I'm going to have to find one of those. Should be less than $10. It's not that big of a deal. Second, it was still frozen up, so I actually put some anti-seize on everything associated with this pivot point. And now we finally have movement like we're supposed to, except for the fact that I don't have that spring. So now I have to locate that spring and do that. But what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and put this deck back onto the mower before I get that spring, just to get it back on, because this is kind of turning into a little bit of a frustrating process. But I'm going to end this video by putting the deck on, and then I'm actually going to make a part 4 of fixing the carburetor spring, which I broke, the choke spring, and putting that spring on. So it's going to be a very springy part 4, and then cranking it up, running it, testing it, and seeing how it does. This has been a long process on this one, but we're getting close. So I'm going to put the deck on first before ending this part. And actually, if you want to see how the deck goes on, it's very similar, apart from the spring actually goes into this mechanism here as opposed to the mechanical blade engage. If you want to look at my part 3 of the mower, the Craftsman Pose Twin, part 3 is about 3 videos up from this time wise. Look at that. I'm going to go ahead and end this part here actually. So I'll catch y'all in part 4. We're going to get this thing buttoned up, hopefully get it all done, including the tire tube. So thank y'all for watching. Sorry this has been a little bit of a long process, but I just kind of want to exhibit how difficult sometimes working on mowers is. Thank y'all for watching again. We'll catch you on part 4.